I think that you just did a perfect segue into Frewaka because, yeah, that's what we're here to talk about. I saw this movie at a film festival, and I saw this movie, and I was like, somebody plucked my experience right out of my brain. I literally sat after the credits rolled, and I was like, oh my God. I was like stunned. Took me a minute to like get up and move because I was like, this movie's crazy.
I'm always envious about hearing that you've gone to these film festivals and seen them because that I wouldn't have known about Frewaka. I've been jumping in and out of streaming to save funds here and there, and I would not have known about things like that. Good Boy, you brought to my attention before I'd heard about it from anyone, and I'm just that's rad. They have some things like that at that theater I went to for Frankenstein, actually, the Grandin, and so I'm gonna start trying to get more into that, and hopefully they'll do more of that. So
Yeah, definitely. New Orleans is such a cool place for horror and occult and supernatural things, and so I am so lucky that a lot of things come here. I mean, Louisiana as a state as a whole's got some fucked up shit happening, but New Orleans is a cool little place.
that and I when I went to Texas, I thought the only place I could live now, Texas is huge, but I went to Austin and thought to myself, I could live in Austin.
Yes,
And I guess that might not be a big surprise, but it felt like because I'd visited Seattle and it felt like Seattle crammed into Roanoke.
yes,
Not that Austin's much bigger than Roanoke, but Austin's a smaller city in a way compared to many larger ones. And so it felt like this huge music and just art scene crammed into the 6th Street and all that there. That I if I had to ETS and live here, at least I could escape to Round Rock, which is right next to it, or Austin.
definitely. That's how I feel about New Orleans. It's like this little cultural pocket in the South. I live in the Pacific Northwest, and I loved it. I can't wait to go back there one day. But I digress. Because I loved Frewaka so much, and also I was just so moved by the way, like you said, the way it was portrayed was so interesting to me. I was like, I want to do a podcast on this movie immediately, but I don't even my brain can't even unpack it. So it took me a while to conceptualize how I wanted to do it. I'm thinking from like a systemic perspective. Outer Ring is like big, long term like ancestors, right? Because we got like the Irish and the Chief, and then you kinda come in, then you've got, like, generations, you got the grandparents, the parents, and then you kinda come in and you've got the lens of Peg, the individual, and so I was like, "Okay, this sounds like a three-parter," and, this is actually the first episode of I haven't actually done any other, so I'm kinda doing the middle right here first. So I thought of you, Neil, because when I started talking about this movie and kind of posting reviews and talking about it in the Friends of Horror Weekly.
I I would see there are some things about Pig or Peg. It sounds like I'm calling her name, Peg. We're gonna go with Peg. There were looks she gave that were reminiscent of so much. A lot of it was my mom,
Mm.
which is odd. My mom looked way older than she should. She looked more like my grandma at times by the time because of the battles health-wise she had fought and just life. I mean, but those looks, there was a childishness to it. There was like a childlike gaze in that, like when they were on the steps when she first had to break in. So, do we need to set the table for folks on what this movie is before I get too far? And we're going to spoil the hell out of it. We or this spoil alert.
Yes. Yeah, I guess we'll just say just really broad overview. Thank you for the spoiler alert, because yeah, total spoiler that this is and you can totally fill in any gaps, but just very broadly, this is an Irish folk horror movie about a woman named Shue, whose mother dies, and right in the middle of taking care of her affairs, she gets called away on an assignment because she's a travel nurse, and she goes to this woman's house named Peg, and then things start to get real weird because Peg supposedly from at first we think that Peg might have some sort of OCD or she's superstitious and she's trying to keep away some sort of evil spirits. And then things start to get real. And then we learn, here's the big spoiler, so stop this. The big spoiler, we learn that Peg is actually Shu's grandmother, and that there's actually the superstitions and the evil is actually all real, and that all of this superstition and obsession. They're rituals to keep away the evil, and it's all been for a reason. And actually, it turns out that Shu's mom had been doing the same thing, which had in some ways traumatized Shu. And so she was kind of seeing some of that same behavior reflected in Peg when she showed up at her house. Yeah.
Honestly, not since The Departed has a movie started with a music number.
Oh,
That whole, that horse lips, I guess is how you say it. It's a weird spelling.
yeah, I have no idea.
An old folk Irish rock band from the '70s, and they picked such an amazing song, Dara Doon.
If you see me coming, you would better run, run, run. From Jarragoon, from Jarragoon, from Jarragoon.
Yeah, I mean, look that up. The riff on that, it chases you. A lot of the soundtrack in this, just the score, is used to almost taunt you. A lot of the effect of the actual fear I was getting was accentuated greatly by how they would crank that music and that the heavy strings when something would happen. It was wild, and right out of the gate, you've got those people skipping down the street in the beginning to that awesome riff and bass line, and you're like, if I saw this crew doing that to this music, I'm a little I'm kinda scared what would happen because this type of horror scares me because I'm drawn to it.
Yeah.
I get entranced by it because it has that magical enchantment element. So I it's almost like you know you should be getting away from this, but you're not.
Yeah.
You're drawn closer. You really are like, "This is I need to know this," but there's somewhere screaming in the back of your mind, "You really don't. You don't. You really don't. You really should move." Because I see them. That crew freaks me out. That they had these weird masks on, like, the kids up front. There's a goat. There's always a goat. I'm like, "Is it our boy Phil?"
I'll
I
say
don't
when the
know.
goat shows up, that's probably a good sign to bail. They're so cute, they got bad rap, but, when they show up in horror movies, it's probably, not a good thing.
I mean, I'm not gonna, like, ask them about, if I can have some butter or nothing like that, but I'm not gonna ask to, like, live deliciously or nothing,
Sorry, if he pulls
but
out a book, that's fine.
yeah, that sets it, in that whole wedding, what she says to and I wanna say, is it Dari, her husband? It's we're getting an image of Peg at her wedding with her soon to yeah, I guess either newly wedded husband, Dowry, and she says, "Who invited them?" Or, "Who invited is these folks are coming in with these crazy masks." And then he replies, "Nobody invites them, that's the point." And that's terrifying. I was like, "W" and that's almost like our trauma, right? That's our generational trauma isn't invited, and it probably wasn't invited with our parents. It just was something that has been given to us.
Well, you just blew my mind a little bit because I think one of the things in my mind that I didn't quite understand about this movie was if these people were, like, supernatural or they were part of the community that were, like, sort of, like, ushering in the she or whatever, but yeah, there's something about this, like, they're just there, like, that it's so scary, that is just really no matter what it is, it's just I think the point is that that's just really fucking scary. Something that I've often had to contend with is this whole idea of, "I didn't fucking ask for this. Why am I the one having to deal with it?" And that really it feels, I've had moments throughout my whole life where this feels really unfair.
You get exhausted, right? Because of that lack of freedom. It's a lack of freedom and control. So you're not controlling who's coming to your party, so to speak, and
Yeah.
that's limiting your freedom to be in places that I that spoke volumes. I watched it last night to refresh, and I've made a lot of notes. I had a review I'd done on it and gushed about it when I first watched it. And I kind of mixed it with notes. I watched it back a second time and took notes throughout just to kind of prepare and watched it last night to refresh on some of the themes. Three, and that number of three, because like three is an important number. The three knocks. You had the Nashahi are drawn to births, marriages, as we see from their marriage, and death.
Yep.
And I think there was three things that she cited to get rid of them. which was pure metals, salt. She's throwing a bunch of salt and like
Yeah.
piss. She like
Yes.
peed under the door at one point when Shu shows up for her. And I was like, that's a mom. My mom, I could see my mom doing that. No joke. Like my mom was pretty eccentric in how she was superstitious to a point. And so, but that's one of those things where sometimes mom would have these stories. And because of some of the issues, you weren't sure what was real.
Oh,
So if like they're really messing with Shu because she's getting this call to go out here, but she gets a conflicting feel from Peg because they hit it off. They really do. And she's trying to figure out how, I think, through a lot of it. But not to skip, Peg gets abducted from her wedding.
yeah.
And everybody or the story that is given by a lot of the town folk is that it was either an asylum or one of those Magdalene like religious places took her for some reason. And
Yeah,
that's
like, she had gotten
that.
pregnant before she was married, and then they took her because that's what they did back in Ireland in those days for kids out of wedlock as an explanation.
Right. Because she did when she leaves the party suddenly and she went out to throw up. And I guess that was the signal she was expecting. And that must have been before the wedding. So that tracks. You're drawing a line. I think I'd made like kind of that connection, but you're not as on the head as that. So I knew they were mad about something, but that makes sense.
Yeah, and, I think that kinda feeds into ancestral trauma too of, like, Ireland, that whole country bears is, like, that phase of the country where, like, the Catholics were on the crusades against purity culture and stuff, where they did, whisk women away that got pregnant before, and they put them in these Magdalene laundries, and there's a really good horror movie about that. I can't think of the name of it, but yeah, so that became part of the lore of Peg, it's like one of those explanations of what happened to her. That is interesting because that kinda goes back to my mom was also very superstitious, and her family was just also very superstitious, and like, even just, like, I came back from a funeral just this weekend on my mom's side of the family, and I swear to God, I know I made the whole podcast about the family folk tales. There's just so many folk tales and folklores on, like, my mom's side of the family specifically. They're just mixed up in these, like, lores and folk tales and superstitions, like, at this point, I'm just like, "Okay, cool." I don't know what's real and what's fake and what's mixed up in superstition. I just kinda smile and nod and listen to everybody's different versions at this point.
That's one of the more unsettling. When my grandfather was passing, I visited him on his deathbed, what would be his deathbed. And I asked him because I had never really gotten close. I said, "Where are we from? Where's our family ties from?" And he looked at me with that. He was happy to see me. There was this gentle. He'd gotten softer over time. Like he'd really turned around, and it helped a lot of my family try and do the same. He got really that piercing, like dark. There, it entered. Like when I asked him about this, and he goes, I mean, he's on his deathbed. And he goes, "All you need to know is you got a lot of kin buried in Arcadia, Virginia." And that's all he wanted to talk. It's all like you could tell that was all there was to that. He would no further going. He changed our last name. He did.
This is crazy deal. Oh my god, my family's last name was changed, so I'm McDaniels
Yeah.
now, but, like, that was changed from
I,
McDaniel. That
he was like,
my grandfather changed our family's last name and added the S because
that is
of
insane.
this family.
Why that slight if you're gonna distance, because he did the same thing. It was either Rickman or Richmond, and he changed it to Rick Munn. And I'm like, if you want a distance, why did you keep it that similar? You could have been like Frito Lay.
And yeah, exactly. Yeah, he took they added the S. Well, depending on who you ask, they either added the S or someone else took the S off, whatever, to distance from other parts of the family. Yep, that was that same generation. That was my grandfather. Actually, I have a picture while we're talking about this because I did bring a few pictures of family. I think that this is probably an interesting time to show him. He reminds me of your grandfather, that this personality. And this is on my mom's side. I think most of what I'm going to talk about in relation to this movie is just my mom's side of things, 'cause my mom mostly raised me. I had my stepdad and my mom, and, my stepdad just wasn't really around a lot because he worked nights, and then my biological father, I don't really feel super comfortable talking about him, but I think most of
Right.
what I felt and what I've unpacked has been around my mom's side of the family. But this is my mom, Sonia. And then that's her dad. His name is kind of shiny. This is not that good of a picture. His name was
Awesome.
Doy Delbert McDaniels, and he was one of
Wow.
13. This is probably a better picture. He was
Wow.
one of 13 brothers and sisters, and that was my mom. I'm looking more and more like her the older I get. And then that was my Mima, and then that's my mom's brother, Don. Of all these people, he's the only one that's still around. And then, this is just another picture. That's my papa, and then my mom and my Mima. Yeah, my papa, had 13 brothers and sisters. That's the McDaniels side of my family that got crafty about changing last names, and, he was a real scary man, depending on who you talk to. So papa had 3 kids. It's so funny how I don't have any siblings. I'm an only child. Sounds like you were too, which is interesting because I think that's rare. So I don't have this experience. I don't have this experience, but I'm often told that, in the same household, one sibling can have a totally different experience from a different different sibling. And that was totally experienced with my grandfather. So my uncle, who was the baby of the family, was like the baby boy. He was spoiled. My mom was the middle child, and she experienced pretty prolific abuse from my grandfather. He would physically abuse her and verbally abuse her. And then even when I came around, I was a little girl. I was the first granddaughter, and so I was the light of my grandfather's life. He treated me like royalty, but I would often hear him talk down to my mom. Like she would come in the door and he would just say disparaging things to her like, "Oh, looks like you gained, another 100 pounds since I saw you last." Or I never heard him say a kind thing to her. And then she would often tell me the physical abuse that he perpetuated onto her just all the time, which was just a completely different experience from the rest of her siblings. And so she was kind of isolated in that because she's having this different experience that no one else can relate to. And so, yeah, that's just from this context. You were talking earlier about your parents and understanding kind of where they were coming from. That was definitely it was even bizarre for me, and I didn't really understand it at the time until I started to think doing my own trauma work is seeing like, I don't know, I'm having this experience with my grandfather where he's just lashing all this love and care and, he was a well-respected man in the community, but then, my mom just was so isolated in her experience with him, but it was her experience and it was so valid, and a lot of that shaped how she was.
I think my dad might have resented me a little bit because even though my grandfather was, he didn't want any bull crap. He was much nicer to me than he was to him and his siblings.
Yeah.
And I told him I knew that as an adult. I told him I know your battles. I know how they, I know that it's hard to talk about grandpa because he was way harder on you guys. I couldn't have survived. I don't think I would have survived what they went through. And they came from that background. My mom came from, she was sexually abused by her stepfather all her life until my great grandma pulled the 22 on him and said, "This is going to stop now." Like her mother knew about it and just let it go on. And it took my great grandma threatening to shoot him before he stopped. And so she really, that was it was a perfect, horrible storm, so to speak,
Yeah.
for mom to go into a relationship with someone like my father, who neither one of them knew what a relationship actually was or how to handle problems in a relationship or what it should be.
Absolutely.
And a lot of my generational trauma comes from I was somewhere between that and then it was like the extremes of families I saw on TV, and none of it's real, right? It shouldn't be the way you saw it in life, and it's not going to be Ozzy and Harriet. It's not going to be like these crazy sitcoms you watch or something. Depends on the show you're watching, but back when I was growing up, they weren't tackling stuff like they do these days as much. They'd have like little little heart to heart episode type things, but it's almost like a therapy session, some of these shows anymore themselves. So things have come a long way. Even the comics I read are therapeutic to me. The music I listen to has become more of that in ways, not just with, I know it's been therapeutic in just music itself's always been that to a degree, but the subject that they might tell a story on or sing about, I think it's gotten a lot more educated on therapy in a way. Like,
Absolutely. One one thing, this is a super generalization. Something that I've learned through not only my own trauma journey, but my counseling education. Again, the super generalization. This is not going to apply to everybody, but you've got the greatest generation who was taught, hey, you don't hold your babies, you don't, respond to them when they cry, you just let them cry it out, you tough love kind of thing. Well, then that was then for our parents, what that caused to happen was that caused them to not get the attachment needs met, and that caused them to be kind of hard at, kind of not sure how to connect to their kids and not sure because they weren't able to get their needs met. And so then they, turned often to like drugs, substances, dissociative type things to get their needs met. And then for our generation, that led to just perpetuating that trauma. And so then our generation, we are starting to become aware of that it's important to how important attachment is, how important connection is, how important it is not to turn away from your feelings, and how important it is to feel them. And I think a little bit now, just kind of keep going down the line, is that people our age are having children. I don't have children. It's kind of almost swinging the other way where it's like, oh, we don't go outside and play anymore. It's like we're keeping you so close because we're afraid of the outside world a little bit. And so I think that
yeah,
a lot of it is generational, I think, is in addition to these family systems and individuals. I think that's been helpful for to frame these things through those lenses.
we see that and back to Frewaka with Shu. She shuts down. She essentially, to cut back to Peg, has the baby. We find out this is kind of, we're jumping around some, but we find out later that to get Peg back, Dari, her husband, had to offer up the unborn baby. Had to offer Shu's mom up, and then Shu's mom, they tried to trick the Nashahi by sending her to a very religious, like like a laundry or some kind of place where she ended up picking up with her generational trauma a lot of religious trauma that then got passed on to Shu.
Yep.
And so that she just didn't it, they were not catching any breaks. And then so when she goes back with her partner who she's engaged to, Mila, who's expecting herself, Shu just doesn't want to deal with any of it. And she's like, I don't care, throw it all out. She's getting a lot of triggers are happening being back there. The cross is looming. It's not comforting at all. Like, as to where some people find comfort in Jesus and the cross. The way they did the draw-ins to the anytime the crucifix or that sound would crank up, those heavy strings, it was it was tormenting to her, and it was terrifying to the viewer because it was like, you'll come to Jesus or we're going to bring him to you on a like with a fiery cross, like uh like, because it was always kind of glowing fiery, that cross, as they would come, you would see it in her eye. I mean, the
Yeah.
cinematographers anymore, I mean, these cats, I I don't, from seeing Frankenstein yesterday to this, they're on a whole other trip. And how you get and know to look for a reflection in someone's eye and get it that clear on film, I have never, that it's eerie and just because that's supposed to, for so many, be comforting or mean sanctuary or things will be okay now. And then it's not. And I mean, that's for me too. My church has always been nature, but then you put that's the other horror. So not only can she not rely on the religious side to maybe is like a thing to rely on for comfort or whatever, the very land of her people, the Nashahi, the people of the land, are are also someone she's got to watch out for apparently at this point. So it's, where do you go? I didn't get a sense that she and Mila had a support system. I wasn't hearing a lot about them knowing or getting a lot from their families. And that isolation was incredible. Because not only was it You don't have it on a spiritual sense. You don't have anybody to help you there. You don't have anybody to help you in a community sense here in Ireland because the very land and community here is probably compromised by the Nashahi. And it's probably because, I mean, human beings with the land, we're not always we're not we're not good to our land a lot.
You're not kind to it. Yeah. Yeah.
So between everything, Shu and Mila are trying to make it, and she's totally disconnected.
Yeah.
Our relationships suffer in that isolation, right? We
Absolutely.
just kind of shut down.
Absolutely.
And I don't when that chance came up, you know, all of a sudden they're back, and all of a sudden that she's called into work. Like Shu's called to go and help someone that she doesn't know is her grandmother yet, just someone there because apparently the Nashahi are on watch out for we still want what's ours, even though we were tricked and you got sent and now Peg comes back with apparently she's gotten some knowledge somewhere because she's been warding 6 ways from Sunday just about everything.
Yeah.
And so they're like, we're gonna get to you through your family now. And how odd, that's how a lot of the times generational trauma will get folks is through the family. You know, that's what it is. It's getting to you through the family.
My gosh. Neil, everything you said just so on the nose and so related. I mean, that's why I love this movie so much. There's so many different threads. But I feel like I was like, oh, we've got plenty of time. But now it's like, oh shit, I feel like there's so many threads. We could just go, oh my God. So many threads. There's a couple things that felt really important about what you said in there. She in particular, she's got her partner, which is really important. Also, I love the queer representation in the cinema. Great job for Waka. Yeah, so she's got her partner, but she doesn't have the family support. She doesn't have the support of her land. She doesn't have the religious support, which, I have said this in a lot of podcasts that even though religious trauma, it can run really deep for people, including myself, it can be a positive thing for people. It can very much be a positive indicator for emotional and spiritual well-being, depending on your relationship with it. But she doesn't have that. Um, I don't know if I can do this justice in a short amount of time. One of the worst relational traumas that anyone can ever experience in their life is an attachment trauma with a parent. Because, as a child, a baby, think about it as a baby, you are completely helpless. You're completely helpless. You cannot meet any of your needs. You are 100% solely reliable on another human being to meet your needs. Now, as you get a little bit older, that goes away a little bit more. And still, at some point, you're still reliant on a caregiver, your parent, to meet that need. And the less and less and less that person is able to meet your need, the more and more that attachment wound is gonna rift and rift and rift. And so poor Shu, her mother is, and I think this is the tragedy of Frewaka, which is also the tragedy I think of what we're talking about in our families, Neil, is that her mother was just trying to protect her. She was talking about, at some point, she was seeing a lot of her mother and Peg. Her mother was just trying to protect her with these rituals, with religion, with faith, but it pushed her so far away from her mother. So that protective instinct of her mother just pushed her so much further away from her mother, which caused these huge attachment injuries and caused this trauma, which is just painfully ironic. And so you've just got this rift, this trauma that's created, and now she's got this distance from her caregiver that was created from a child, which is going to stay with her the rest of her life and inform, a lot of her decisions. And I think just kind of leading into something else that you talked about is not having community, not having the people, not having being in isolation and how terribly unhealthy that can be for someone in mental health and emotional support. I just want to throw this book up. This is another book I read in grad school called Decolonizing Trauma Work from the Standpoint of Indigenous Folks. And it talks a lot
Awesome.
about, yeah, and it's just talking a lot about um, how Indigenous people handle mental health. And it really just to sum up this book, it is community support and not living in isolation and being with other people and letting other people support you. And even if it can't be your primary caregiver, your parent is letting people help you. I mean, sometimes giving help is easier than letting people help you. And we see Shu in that movie just pushing, 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 her partner away. And I get it. And I think, if I don't talk about it in this episode, I'll talk about it in a later one. Sometimes setting boundaries is okay too about things that are don't want to, like the things in the house and whatnot. But, I did see a lot of resistance in Shu about letting put people in and helping her.
Mila, he both literally and figuratively was dealing with all of her baggage because she
Yeah.
was left to deal with that apartment of all that stuff. And then also the fact that, she was taking off and disconnecting at the same time. Even when
Yes.
she could get her on the phone, she would get very defensive anytime the house was brought up, and it angered. She'd go to anger on that. It was a fear, I think, of having to deal with it because most things are fear, anxiety based that lead to that anger or that frustration. And so that's always what would draw it out. And yeah, it was really tough to watch her go through those things that I had been through, and Julie has been through with me, continues to go through at times with me when I'm having a bad day maybe, or, there's just so much hitting, and there's not a lot of time allowed to process it the way this healthy way. It's tough. I think with the really hard part with mental health is you have to have time to have mental health. And then the way the world works is it wants all your time. It wants it for not mental health most of the time. They want for we have to make money. We have to take care of the house and do the chores. It's very hard to make sure you get that time, and especially if it's happening during those things, to pull away to get your mind right, so to speak, before moving forward. It's easy to spiral. And you see that a lot because she's off on a job. And I think that as manipulative as the Nashahid were, they knew exactly not only that they were calling her to the spot they wanted her to with her grand, they were like, the way we're going to trick her is it wasn't really the agency calling, it was us. That they find out, like, that was one of the most
Yeah.
horrific flips is when Mila, her partner, gets that call and they're like, she's sending in timesheets or whatever, and she hasn't done anything since whenever, and that's where she's not supposed to be on this case.
That was so
And
creepy.
that I was like, no, like that's one of those you can hear like the bass drop things like that manipulation. They even brought her to a town where it either seems like a bunch of them are either Nashahi or folks that serve them somehow because they are taunting her in that town. On her
Yeah.
bus ride over, the old guy's like, you should go home because they don't realize that she can speak Gaelic as well. And that's Gaelic being spoke, right?
I
Is
think
it like
so.
traditional Irish?
Yeah, some sort of traditional Irish.
That them using that mostly through the film also lent to an isolationist type of feel. Like, that also very much lent to that the land and going back to the root, which Frewaka, I think itself means roots.
Yeah.
So that the whole roots of it all is very much there as she's heading in before she gets pissed at. At first, they were like, "You should go home,"
Yeah.
until they realize who maybe it is, and they're like, "Oh." It's one of those things. Remember Hot Fuzz? Did you watch that one?
God, it's been a long time. I
Like, the
probably never.
whole town was in on everything. So
Yes.
they were trying to point to what, like, who's the real murderer or whatever, and it's like the whole town's the whole murder. So like it feels a lot like that. They're all in on getting the Nashahid their what they were promised.
Yes.
And
That makes so much sense. I don't think I really put that together because, again, I think there was so much of the movie that I couldn't make sense of. Like, why did her friend not come to the door when she was trying to knock on the door? Like, hey, come help me. And then, like, why are these people just out wandering in the streets? Does nobody think this is weird? But it makes so much sense. It's like the whole town is in on it.
growing up, we felt a lot like that.
Yes.
My dad was my dad wanted us he wanted us to basically accept him with those abusive flaws back then. And the family would convince him that's what should be done, even if it wasn't all him, but he definitely went with the family. You don't break from the family type stuff.
Yes.
It's weird because when they start fighting each other, it's a weird thing. They will have infights and it's a thing, but then it's so bizarre. I'll never understand it because mom made sure I wouldn't. She was like, this is bad. he tried to make her not self-reliant. So, mom, in order to be self-reliant, she would lie to get jobs, lie about not having epilepsy and stuff, just so she could get a job as a single woman in a very rural area that thought you should stick with your man no matter what. And that's no.
Yeah.
And so they would sabotage her jobs. They would call and cost her jobs and stuff because he would want to come back and she's like, I don't want to take it anymore. No, no, no. He owned the house we lived in. He was off seeing the woman that he'd left us for originally and would come back when he would try and come back when things weren't going well there. You know, he's trying to do that number. And so eventually he sold the house from out under us. Like he actually sold it while we were living in it.
No.
And he stole my college fund that my great grandma had lived in there, and he took his then family to the beach. And you're wondering why I still have a relationship with him. It's because I had to make sense of it, and it's because I know there's a very good person in there.
Yes.
There is, and I love him. And people must be wondering what the hell. Don't I? I'm not condoning any of that. I'm not condoning the abuse. I'm not condoning the bad actions. I know kind of how everything was built up. It doesn't
Yeah.
make it right. I feel for him in a lot of ways, but not excusing again what he had done, especially to my mom, but also to me through that. And I know I can see times where he comes to that realization and he's very clear with me. And there's some times where he's in another state of denial. He'll withdraw from it. And it kind of depends on when you catch him. But that we were always that way. We had really good friends that mom knew. We stayed with when we tried to go stay with her mom, and she wouldn't let us. Her sister would none of the family would let us. The people ended up letting us stay with them when we were out there. We were kinda we were technically homeless for a minute in a U-Haul with all our stuff.
Goodness.
"Hey, buddy." I don't know if you're seeing a cat, but Rhonda and Tommy, who she knew in high school, friends from high school, we ended up staying with. And until mom could get on her feet. And then I think she ended up getting a job back towards the country. So we lived in Roanoke for a minute, and we moved back to the country to milk cows and stuff. All this network of friends. She had a very good found family, found friendly, but that really without them, we wouldn't have made it.
Yeah.
There was a time because everybody in both families had turned their back, citing that it was her fault for not putting up with the abuse and just taking him back. Even her side, even her mom cited she should just take my dad back.
Goodness.
And I will never forget her turning us away at her door. And she wondered why I wouldn't come visit her later. Like the family all got mad at me when I was old. They're like, well, you're your man now. You can make your own choices. And I was like, well, I'm making it. You know, I don't want to come visit you. I do have memories. I remember being in a U-Haul and you said we couldn't stay there. Like,
Yeah.
tend not to forget it. That was a moment. And so with Shu and all of that going on and being isolated by a town, because the whole town, she contested not only that my grandma on that side contested the will that my great grandma had left us a house. We would have had a house left to us. She contested the will to take that house that was my great grandma's and left to us. And I think she was bitter that my great grandma took to my mom so much. And I don't think liked her very much. And I don't blame her, but I don't know what the relationship was for my grandma growing up either. I'll never
Yeah.
know.
Yeah. Oh my gosh.
She illegally somehow got the house. But I think they didn't tell my mom they were doing it, and mom was just trying to make ends meet and was out here, and they just took it. And just crazy as it's the wildest thing. My mom tells me that her real dad was shot by my grandmother and killed. I don't he was in the Air Force and I never met him a day, but mom says that he was not faithful, and I think grandma shot him.
Wow. Oh my god. Talk about a
So
family.
I'm like, I'm like, how is she not going to prison? I don't know what's real. I don't know
Yeah.
how true that is. But then when I hear about wills being changed and how, and then my grandfather on my dad's side telling cops what to do, I don't know. When she's in town and all those people are apparently just like against her and being awful to her, there were many times when people seemed to know a lot more about my life than I did.
Yeah.
And that is a horrible feeling. Like you 'cause you're like, "What's wrong with me? Like, what why? Like, I'm just trying to be a kid or I'm just trying to make it. What's up?"
Well, Neil, I relate to so
Yeah,
much of everything you've just said. I mean, all the way from the don't know what's real about the family stuff, also, like, people getting shot, like, God, all the way from the top to the bottom. I grew up in a small rural town in Alabama of a couple thousand people, and this whole the town knowing stuff and just no one doing any like, I had a little bit of a different experience, but from the same kind of angle that you're talking about here. My mom would get absolutely loaded and just drive all over town, and people would just like with me, and like people would just put her back in the car and send us home. And I mean, everyone knew her as just the crazy lady in town, and they loved her. I mean, she had my mom. I mean, she had a wonderful personality. There's two versions of her. She was like the good mom and bad mom, is what I used to think of her as. But everybody knew, like, what was happening with me, and I had this definitely this phase of my life when I was in therapy, when I was like, "Why?" Like, okay, why did nobody call CPS? Why did nobody, like, do anything? Like, they just would let me stay at home. Like, I would call the ambulance to come over to, like, get her when she was, like, having overdoses on alcohol and drugs and stuff. They would just leave me there with her after everything was tended to, like, where the hell was everybody? Everybody in town knew what was happening, and no one did anything about it, and I would definitely have these moments in therapy where I was like, "What was wrong with me? Did nobody care about me? Was I invisible? What is it about me that kept getting overlooked?" And I think the thing that really helped me was back in those times is we didn't have a lot of the information that we have now about how childhood trauma impacts people growing up, and also, there is, like, there's just this common theme of this, like, small town vibe of, like, kind of just each other we just to each their own kind of vibe and culture and stuff. The adverse childhood experiences study didn't happen until, like, the mid-90s, where we didn't really have a good understanding of how, this trauma
wow.
infects people
I didn't
until
realize that.
yeah, it's the ACEs study. That didn't happen until the mid-90s, early mid-90s, and so we didn't really have
Wow.
this understanding of how the 10 different factors 10 factors, substance abuse in the home, divorce, violence, sexual trauma really affect children, and then how that affects them, their health and their well-being as they grow older, and so that really it's not about us, I think it took me a while to realize it wasn't personal, it wasn't about me, but,
Yeah, and that yeah, the not personal thing takes a while.
I'm really not sure I figured that out yet. I'm not quite sure I figured that out yet. Maybe I logically know it, maybe there's some of me that haven't quite, realized that yet, but we're getting there.
Yeah, it always felt pretty I mean, even the farm we lived on, we got isolated there. The people that ran that, there were some good people, but the people that actually owned it and stuff, they tapped our phone line oddly, and I still can't figure out why. Oddest thing, I mean, all right, this is some trigger alert stuff. I part of the reason I have the not just because I'm an animal lover, animal conservationist, all this stuff with Julie, animals being a trigger for me in horror. The nephew of the guy that ran the farm, when he was like in his 20s and I was tweenish, I was like fourth, fifth grade. This guy would beat the crap out of me, man. He would pass and like hit me with rolls of pennies out of his truck and like say stuff. And I would try to fight him even at that age, and it would go very poorly. You it would go very poorly. I thought in my head everything was an '80s movie at that point because it's the '90s by then, and I've seen some '80s movies.
Yep,
And so I was like, I can take him out if I hit him just the right way.
yep, yep.
And
You could be the hero of your
he
story.
was a hoss. He was a hoss of a dude and terrible. So I'd pick the roll of pennies up and try to get it in my fist and go after him. And I'd get a hit in, and he would buckle, but then he wasn't down like I thought he should be. Like, and so, like, I was like, "What do you mean he didn't go down?" Like, "Uh-oh." And so he got me pretty bad. Eventually, and this you should never do this, PSA, breeding wolves with dogs is a bad thing. It's not something that it should happen. I had raised money. I think I watched White Fang as a kid, and my mom didn't know well enough either. We weren't very well educated about animals in general. We knew we liked them. We didn't know what the ins and outs of domestication. And so there was someone who was breeding timber wolves down down the way, and I raised $350 cleaning the barn one summer, um, and got a timber wolf. Now, that's dangerous for a lot of reasons. Um, the wolf side of them will pick out, they will treat you like a wolf. I slept with him in his dog house when we first got him. I'd sleep outside with him. Mom couldn't get me in. Like, she'd try and get me in, and I'd go right back out and sleep with him. I mean, called him Patriot. This is bad. It was this is terrible. This is because of Desert Storm was going on because of the missile.
Yeah,
I don't know why. I wasn't that patriotic of a kid. I have no idea. I think it's because I like G.I. Joe. It's
yeah.
terrible.
This is cute. This is a cute story for the it makes sense for the time.
Right. But he protected me. The guy, he was very protective of me. So when the guy would try and come get me, he would ward him off. Long story short, they got him when I was away at school.
Mm.
And that that is a big trigger for me for that reason. Like, tie this back into what we're talking about, Frewaka, being isolated by a family, because to deal with her milking cows and us living on that farm, and she's my, as you said, I can't support myself, and I'm in fourth or fifth grade, getting bullied there, getting bullied by the crazy dude, crazy adult that helmed the farm, and she doesn't know what to do about it. She knows about it, but knows that she'll be fired and doesn't know how to get a new job because all of her jobs have been sabotaged prior by a family that's after us. Like, it's crazy. She was on like a really, really hard spot, and she's 5 foot something. But mom was a fighter. Getting back to the story, isolation. So we were very isolated because they owned everything, and plus part of the deal with the farm was the house. So the deal is you get a very meager wage, but you get a fridge full of beef because some of these cows are going to slaughter. You get free like utilities and everything's paid for, and the house you're staying on the farm is paid for. And so, but they have you, right? It's almost like a servitude that you're in at this point.
Yeah. It sounded like.
She got this job through a friend from high school that was married to the sister of the guy that was running it at the time, who's a great guy, but I don't think knew enough about all of this. And so it we were stuck in a way with that. Mom wanted to kill the dude. I ended up trashing his car. I'm not proud of that. My mom teaching me to do that lets you know she was a personality herself. Mom was a fighter. She only ever defended herself when it came to dad, though. When mom would ask for child support, the lady that he was seeing behind mom's back, where he ran off with, would tell her to stop calling. She would call and ask for child support, wouldn't get it, whatever. She told mom to stop calling. Eventually, she came over in our yard with nunchucks. You can't make this up. Made nunchuck. This is traumatizing at the time. This was one of the most. This had an effect on me that's probably still there, but I laugh about it now. But she showed up, pulls in the yard, nunchucks. My mom, I'll never forget, goes, "You wait a minute, bitch. You brought a knife to a gunfight." And I'm thinking, those are nunchucks because I know enough about weapons. I know enough about weapons. That's not a knife.
Not a
I've
knife.
seen Ninja Turtles. That's what Michelangelo uses. So like she shows up, like I think she's wearing leather pants. It's of a time.
It's like,
I'm like, what is she in a White Snake video? What is this?
yeah.
So mom pulls a shotgun. The lady goes like whiter than she is. Like she's a Ghostbuster, seen a ghost white. And my dad, have you played Duck Hunt?
Yes.
My dad shows up like the dog in Duck Hunt. He's out there pulling like these weird moves. And my mom didn't realize she had drugged me the whole way because I was on her leg from the house trying to tell her not. I was terrified, and this is sad, not that she would shoot her, but that I would have to go live with someone else, maybe dad. And so I think a lot of the reasons maybe someone didn't call with mom later on, like you're saying for you, why didn't someone call CPS if they were like out of their mind, was they knew the alternative for me. And it wasn't great either.
Yeah.
But my mom straight up told my dad when he jumped out there, she goes, "Do you think I won't shoot your ass too?" And like, I'll never, like, I was like, Mom, it's like, don't go to prison. I was like, I was like in grade school. I think I was like, it was somewhere between second and third grade this happened. It's bananas. Um, that whole deal. And I ask him every now and again, you remember that? He's like, yeah, I remember that.
God, that is
He was
wild.
like, I know that shotgun. He's like, she don't know exactly how close she was. That thing had a hair trigger. I'm like, well, I guess you should have told her more about it before you left. Like, that's what you're gonna tell me? Is she didn't know about the hair trigger?
God. Oh my God.
But I think my dad probably was a bully to a lot of the people in the trailer park we were in because a lot of them had a hatred for me I didn't understand, but I don't know that. I couldn't figure out why they didn't like us. Either they were friends of his or they didn't like him enough for my family, again, to be attached to a stigma, much like again in Frewaka. Like it's a weird community. And uh, I paid for a lot of it to just like there was Little Vernon and Gary Ray. There was these two brothers that made my life hell that I
Wow.
had no idea why. And
What's the phrase
it was
that
like,
father or, the sins of the something about the sins of the father, paying for the sins of the father or something like that?
well, think about the names I just told you: Little Vernon and Gary Ray.
Wow.
Hmm. I I was like, I don't know that I'm gonna look them up, but those are names that just I hope you know what? Hope maybe they're doing well. Maybe they had their own ish and they're doing better now. I hope they are.
So, hope they have found compassion and
Yeah.
pity for others.
I wish that even for the guy that did what he did to me and my dog. Like it's weird to wish that, I guess. In my mind, not all cases, but a lot of the times it's built from something, that's built
Absolutely.
somewhere. I
Absolutely.
I've met people that I can't figure it, that I'm like, why are you terrible? And at a point, like I'm exhausted and I can't help it. Like I just got to get away from them. So
I just love movies, especially that show the compassionate angle of people just don't wake up being shits or angry or, like Shu being avoidant or Peg being, she's such a feisty lady. Even Shu's mother hung herself and she had all this religious, people just don't wake up and decide to act like this. Things happen to them. And I love movies that really help us understand how that happened. Frankenstein did a great job of that.
I was crying at points. I was like, this is so like it at points I was like, I would get very like self-involved. It was almost I had to watch because I'll get a little too self-involved with it, identifying with something. But I'm like, no, it's not just me. This is all of us. This is
Yeah.
people.
Exactly,
And
it's
this is
people.
I'm gushing way too much on it. I feel like I overhyped that movie now. But for someone I did not it wasn't that I wasn't a fan of the Universal classic. It just had never hit for me like everybody. And then I read the book recently and that didn't hit for me like everybody. For Guillermo del Toro and everybody who worked with him on that movie, from the performances to the cinematography to the sound, it all hit. And I told them coming out of the theater, it may be my favorite movie of all time now.
It
Like,
was
and
absolutely
that's I don't know. Some of it was really hard. I know the animal stuff was really rough at points. But it was for a reason. It wasn't some stuff's done. I'm like, that could have been done better. It didn't need to be as cheap as it was done. But it was used to show how the nature was even at war, and they had the whole sheep effect of it at one point.
yeah,
How that played out with that family, it had a reason.
absolutely.
And I can live with it having that reason. It's gonna be a hard watch. I might skip it from now on. And I'll skip that piece that I know about. But yeah,
I'm the
I
same
loved
when it
how we lived with the mice in that. We'll not go into Frankenstein too much, but I was like, "Holy cow."
I was about to say, I am, planning to do a pod on that with my one of my best friends who we share a love for the novel, a deep love for the novel. I wept a lot during that movie. It was deeply profound. This is well, I don't know what genre to call this, a reflection on, like, humanity? I don't know, but, like, again, just, like, another reason why, Frewaka just, hit so hard for me. And just like thinking about my mom through all this, something else that you mentioned earlier is she, I know what like a lot of her big trauma was. And I was thinking about her this morning. I was kind of nervous coming into this podcast because, and I was like, I didn't want to put a lot of pressure on you, but you did kind of know this was a big deal for me because, and I was just really heavy on my heart this morning and thinking about her because I was like, I really want to do justice by her because I really want to be able to tell my story, but I want to make sure that I really tell her story too. And, make it very clear that I don't blame her for, what for what happened to me, that I understand where it came from and what happened to her. She did absolutely the best that she could, and I believe that with all my heart. And a big part of her trauma story was my grandfather, but then she also experienced sexual abuse by a family member. I know that you had mentioned that you had a family member that experienced the same, and that is one of the most profound intrusions into somebody's physical, emotional, spiritual psyches that can happen that no one believed or addressed my mom, and so she carried that with her. And on top of that, my mom had what I now understand. I went to therapy with my mom one time. We did this family therapy session, and the therapist told me that my mom had bipolar. And which now, especially now, where I sit as a therapist who diagnoses and has a much better understanding of the DSM, it makes so much sense to me because my mom had these deep, deep, I think she had very extreme bipolar. She had these deep, 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 dark pits. And that's usually when she would use the drugs and alcohol, that she would have these insane uh a mania where she would just like not sleep for days and like just have these crazy like productive days. Bipolar is one of those mental health conditions that is very much brain chemistry dependent. I mean, it is trauma related too. I mean, I think it's multi-factor, but she had no control over her brain in a lot of this too. And I just have so much empathy for that now, that she just had no control of her brain. She had this untreated trauma, and then she was basically raising me by herself. I mean, I had my stepdad, but he was absent drinking. He had big anger problems.
Yep.
And I don't have kids, and I barely can handle my life as it is. Like one of the reasons I don't have kids is because I think maybe you were touching a little bit on this too, Neil, is I know myself well
Yeah.
enough at 38 years old that I get overwhelmed very, very, very easy. And I know that if I had a kid, I would not be able to I would probably traumatize them because I get overwhelmed so easy, and like I can barely manage.
Patience that it takes.
Yeah, and not to mention
And
I'm resource.
I was I'm gonna step right back to Frank just real quick, but when he didn't have that patience, yeah, yeah, I knew that was something. That's why I'm not a dad.
Yep.
And I have that, I can have with my fur babies, but they are self-reliant. I have cats. And, my feather flock, they rely on me to herd them back and forth a bit, but it's not the same as having to teach everyone all of these systems and this education and everything. Plus, not only is there the DNA of what we're discussing for me, and I won't go into, Julie has her own battles and her side of the family that also would come with its own thing. It skips a generation with the epilepsy, so there's a fair chance that my kid would be epileptic. And adoption, even if you were saying, well, adopt, like there again, the generational trauma and just the whole emotional, mental health DNA of it all scares me for what would happen with the kiddo. Um, we're good with our animal stuff, but we love our friends. Our friends are terrific parents. They do phenomenal job, and I kind of am so happy to see that they can at least help society grow in that way. But yeah, it's just for us. It's just not a thing.
Absolutely. I'm so proud of my friends out there who are raising the next generation of kids that are gonna take on the mantle and make a better society. I'm super proud of them. And, Neil, I think there's a whole generation of people out there that didn't feel like they had a choice of having kids, that like, that's just a thing that you do. And so I'm really proud of people like, and I know this is a little bit self-indulgent right now because I'm involved in this, what I'm about to say too, but I'm proud of people who make a conscious choice to say like, hey, I can't, I am not, this is not for me. And if I did it, like, I'm probably going to perpetrate something that like is not going to be helpful. That's a little bit of a negative spin on it, but I'm trying to be positive here. It's like, maybe I wish that more people would maybe put more thought into it.
It started a little more selfish. I think I liked my time and I liked being able to be like the gamer of the family. So, like it started out that, but as I got older and it got more serious into consideration, and as my friends started these families and I saw what they had, I would sit with Julie and have those conversations, and she's like, "No, we're still on the same page." I was like, it is really amazing what they're doing, and I'm glad that we can hang out with them and be there to support them when we're able to hang out and stuff. But, I think we're comfortable with us just being us. And so, with that, we're not going to have just like now. I mean, our support system's not reliant. Our friends have all moved out. None of them would know how to deal with what we're doing here. Not that I would know how to deal with their family either. I don't know if they would trust me to babysit or not. They're like, maybe they would have him out there too much with the flock.
I know what
All
you mean
right.
because we often have moved around for jobs, and so we've made little communities and then left them and then come back, and immediately my brain goes to the Friends of Four Weekly, yay, that's why that's another reason why I'm glad that, I found that online community because it's like, "Ooh, I found some friends that are online that, always have this connection with on horror," and even that goes beyond that where we have been able to talk about some deeper things and, relate on more personal levels. So, again, I go back to creating community as a way of overcoming trauma.
I always know that there's a community there that is willing to listen and they'll help, as much as they can. And I would do the same thing. I just try to give them my, what are my perspective. If it works for them, great. If not, then, they don't have to take that as gospel by any means. The only reason I can make sense of a lot of the mistakes I've made in life, or not make sense of it, but maybe try to, in my own way, honor the fact that I do realize they were mistakes, is to do better each day and use them to try and help others if I can. Like, if
Absolutely.
it applies to it, if it's their same type of deal. But so I don't mind sharing that. I'm not trying, I do not, I want it to come off as like, I know I'm still very Jon Snow. I know nothing. But where I've hit my head on things, I've had a failed relationship, unfortunately. Julie and I have been together 20 years now. So I've had one that's worked. And that takes work. It takes a lot of patience from her. I'm sure she would think the same, but I see it as very one sided, but it's just because we love each other so much. We were
Absolutely.
really, people say this, I think we were made for each other. And I think, I'm hoping that's what Shoes found in Mila in this movie. But at the same time, it's kind of heartbreaking with where it goes because we kind of talked about how everything's playing there. Um, Peg is very well aware that this person, Deidre, the healthcare assistant that's coming, is one of the Nashahi. And it actually proves it to her at one point because she was inviting her in. She was kind of a line stepper. She was tired and exhausted by all of the uber religious dogma that her mom had put her through. So when Peg is trying this stuff, it's not that she wants to be disrespectful. It's kinda that she's exhausted. She's like, "I just wanna help you, and to do that, I have to have this visit and, whatever," but she doesn't understand the real danger. She's a little dismissive in her exhaustion. She kinda breaks all the rules. She's taken up some of the wards. She goes beyond this door that Peg has in this amazing house that's all
Yeah.
warded up, that obviously is not meant to go into, but she keeps going in there for old pictures and stuff of Peg that they eventually put together it's a little late, but they draw together things of "We are family, you are my grandma, the Nashahi are real," but she was taking items off the spirit tree. If the Nashahi wouldn't already have been after her for the whole, um, debt that they see it in their family, they would have been after her, I think, for the line stepping, like, if
Yeah, for
lore's
the
correct. It's I love Shu, but at the same time, like, I think it was just, her frustration and exhaustion was making her a little too dismissive.
Absolutely. Even me, I think when I first started, I didn't know where the movie was gonna go, but, like, I think the moment whenever that caseworker, or from the agency showed up for the visit, put her head up on the door and sniffed on the door, I was like, "Okay, this is real." That was a moment, and then, later on, there was this shot of her that was so cool. I think it was the second time she came to visit. She walked up to the door and Shu is like looking at her from the top window and she's throwing salt on her and stuff. And she does this like reverse walk. It was such a cool shot. I was like, whoa,
The
that's
peephole
cool.
shot. It was.
Yeah.
She was looking through the peephole and and then she really broke down and started like, she was spinning, like she kept repeating what she had said. She was taunting her. And the way she left when the salt was thrown from the window by Peg was like, that's not natural.
Yeah. It
She's
was
kind
just
of
weird.
scampered away.
It was so weird. This is it. There's something not right here.
We don't smell the door. We don't. That's
Yeah.
one of my rules. If you hear, you just can't sniff doors, and especially not that way. I mean,
To know, because you know what? I'm a big smell person. I like, I'm pretty sensitive to smells. I've been walking up and smelling stuff, so it's not out of the question.
it almost reminds me of the '89 Batman. It was really creepy. This is a weird deep cut where Kim Basinger is trying to she's trying to play the Joker and I think kick him or something, and she's like, smelling her up like all over his suit, and she's like, "I just love purple," and then she basically rope a dopes him so Batman can have a shot at him or something, and I was like, "That is so creepy."
Yeah.
It did the job, but I was like, "That she did too good a job." I don't know.
Yeah. Good connection.
Yeah, I was like, "No, let's not do that." But it all spirals tragically because at one point, Peg tries to shield, as our parents would try to shield us from the darkness. They don't want us to have the same habits, or to get involved or addicted to the same addictions. But it's some of the damage, they didn't get ahead of it quick enough, maybe. Sometimes they do, sometimes they don't. Obviously, Shoe's got some stuff riding her that they didn't get ahead of quick enough. And she's like, I'm just gonna give myself up for you. And she goes into the door, and that's kind of that shielding. And the terror is they're like, that's nice, but we've already done our number on you. We want to do our number on, just like the trauma wants to do its number on you. She at one point opens the door, sees her husband in a creepy fashion. He's all jacked up. And then the door slams as she's in it. And then Shu can't get it open. But eventually it opens up and she's spit back out and she is beat up. And then
Yeah.
that's when Shu goes to town and it's isolation time because no one's answering except you start hearing that drum beat. And then the parade's on and they're chasing her. She runs all the way back into the house. And then one of the most, maybe, I don't know, there's so many chilling shots. But when they cut, remember, she's back in the house and has locked it and kind of does that number where you slide down on the door. They cut back, those weird masked people are on each side of the windows.
Yep.
I was like, no.
No, sir.
They get up into that room and eventually they lock themselves in another room upstairs. You do see a prosthetic leg. A lot of that club footed, I guess there's a prosthetic because her mom had the club foot. And that's how they kind of put it together with did your mom have a club foot, all this and that. And, they were trying to put that together. They each had they had kind of an insight. Shu had found that box, which is weird to say shoe box, down in the basement with all of Peg's old stuff. But then Peg had started when Shu had run to get help going through her stuff and had found the old clippings she had from her mom and put it together that it was her daughter and that was her, in fact, her grandchild. That realization happening then as they're trapped in there at that point by either the townsfolk, the Nashahid, or a combination thereof is so awful to be that trapped. Okay, they definitely want you. They spit me out. Outside's coming to get you. I'm going to lock myself in up there. And I think what Peg does next, I think she thinks through her death, maybe cancel the debt.
That's my understanding.
She took that doorknob and shoved it through her eye. It's one of the most hardcore ways to decide to go. But I don't know if that was giving a nudge back to pure metals, if that doorknob was pure metal. I know wrought iron is something I've heard that through a lot of the comics and stuff I read and the gaming is supposed to hurt fae folk or changelings. I don't know if that's playing into that pure metal that she had cited of being one of the three things. And maybe she was hoping that with the combination of her doing what she did, maybe that would cancel the debt. But then creepy enough, she hears them whispering that they still want her. and then she hears Mila show up.
So I didn't think about this until later, but when Peg killed herself, that was 3 members of the family that killed themselves. That was Peg and then Peg's husband. So both of her grandparents ended up committing suicide. And then
Yeah.
Peg's mother committed suicide.
Yep. All of them
So,
did.
yeah. You were talking about getting ahead of the damage, once they were trying to, keep Shoe safe. That's interesting because I was as you said that, I was thinking about, like, how my mom, did protect me even though she was very traumatized herself and she was doing the best that she could. One of the interesting ways that I came to understand, the way she was trying to help me, even in her own state of trauma and dysfunction, was she pushed all the clubs, all the activities, all the academics, and so I was in literally everything, and you name it. My high school resume had anything and everything on it, and, that was her way of basically, like, getting out of it was through success, and for a long time, this is gonna sound so counterintuitive, I was kinda pissed about that because I had to, like, construct this very, like, perfectionistic identity in order to kinda, like, get out of the
Yeah.
trauma, like, that I kinda, like, didn't ask for, but it did. That is kinda, like, how I survived, like, my circumstances, because like, if I didn't get it like a scholarship to go to college, like, I would have never left my circumstances, like, I'd probably I don't know what have happened to me, like and you said something earlier too, is like, this could have gone a couple ways for me because, I know people that, have had some serious trauma that, like, very easy to things could have gone a very different way. I'll just leave it at that. And so, but for me, it went like, almost the extreme other direction where I was really pushed in this, like, success. And, I'm in this phase of my life now where I'm sort of, like, trying to look at, like, "Okay, well, who do I wanna be?" Like, this is great, like, I can see how this is how they helped me get out, and I can see how this, like, helped me survive, and this is all great, and I'm very thankful for it now. But, like, how who am I now beyond all of these identities that were constructed for me? So, a little bit of a deconstruction part of my life right now, which is kinda interesting, but I definitely appreciate how that helped. That was my mom and family helping me get ahead of that damage for sure. And then just a little bit note about suicide, major trigger warning coming up here. I think my mom died from passive suicide. She basically gave up at the end of her life. That was another thing that I kinda sussed out of that movie. My mom died about 3 years ago, and the way I think about it now was she really honestly, like, gave up on life. She laid down and died and in a nursing home and did not try, which is totally passive suicide. And she was suicidal most of my life.
Very, very similar. Mom had a few times where she went in for suicide, to rehab. She was a fiery redhead. She burnt bright, but she burnt fast.
My mom
And
too.
this, like I said, the physical, yeah, it sounds like they're so similar because they live so much life so fast. I don't just don't the physical she just couldn't move. She got to a point where she couldn't move, and she got mom was someone that once she didn't have that, I do feel like in some ways she did give up, which was hard to see someone who had persevered through so much. I'd say for both of our moms to come out of hard lives of abuse, and it's hard to see someone that to be so strong give up because they can do it. That's in them. They're just the motivation for whatever reason. I think mom might have, for me, I think what it was is the reason she even held on so long was she was scared. She was really scared that she was still worried I was going to become what she had feared. She was still trying to make sure that I wasn't going to go down the path she had done so much to keep me from, like whether it was doing a lot of things that I didn't even know she had done, some of it legal, some of it not, to give me things that honestly at our financial state shouldn't have been possible,
Yeah.
just to try and make it so that I had the chances other kids. She broke herself for me and, for us. I know, some of the things she did, it was for her, but I don't think she would have done some of what she did if not for me. And it sounds like your mom's the exact same way. It can lead to some other things like you're saying, like they might think it's the best thing and not realize what some of the dangers are on the flip.
Oh, I'm sorry now. I said I wasn't gonna cry, but here it comes. No, it's okay. I'm just thinking about honestly, I'm thinking about, you, and honestly, I'm just thinking about how proud I am of you, and I can't help but think that Sandy would have been very proud of you, honestly.
I am here by the grace of the best people. I'm the biggest stray Julie's ever taken in. My friends have had a lot of patience with me. They've all been a part of this. I haven't been a part of everything that's been traumatic to them, but they've all been a part of some of my trauma, and they took it on. They didn't have to, and I'm just grateful for it, and thank you all for being, you all in Horror Weekly, the friends, and you're there for so many. I know we've got a lot of folks that they're going through a lot. You guys all share a lot, and that means a lot. Julie doesn't understand some why times where I like sad songs or sad movies, and it's because I like there's solidarity in knowing that I'm not the only one battling or who has battled. There's something to
Absolutely.
that, and you guys, yeah, it moves mountains with what that can do. So, nah, that I've been very lucky. His mom had a lot of good friends that helped us through life, and I've had a lot who have helped us since. And I don't know, it reminds me of like every day is almost like a D&D campaign. You never know what players at the table, who's coming to help with what big bad we're facing this week. But they show up. Someone shows up, and we might not win that battle, but we doing good enough for us to live on and fight the next ones.
That's true. I mean, one day, 1 second at a time sometimes, and we're so lucky to cultivate these people in our life and realize that we don't have to do this life alone, whether it's with our partner or people, these people that we cultivate. And but even now, just thinking about the spirit of, what our loved ones left with us and their hopes that they had for us, you know?
When she passed, before like, it was a day or 2 before she passed, it was the last time I saw her, I would play guitar for her, and I'm crappy, but she liked it, and I would make up songs. I would, like, 4 chord myself a song and, like, play it for her and sing crappily, and a big part of the reason I had any freedom was because of her wife. Mom had a wife later. So mom so mom had all of these awful men in her life. She would get these boyfriends that were terrible and eventually landed with Steph, who was broke herself helping mom, I mean, honestly. And I would come watch mom and do these things because mom would, I mean, we had hospice. There's no way I could have handled the family and all that without him. There's no way I could have just stood and being all that mom was for me, which I feel guilt for, is I couldn't be what she was to me as a kid. I wanted to, but our jobs, we don't have a support system. Julie doesn't have family that can stand in, and we don't have like extended family that would come watch or take shifts.
Yeah.
And so between Steph and I, I would go and either give Steph a break or she would go out and run errands and I would come watch mom and just help with feeding her or whatever. And then take time off of work. I worked out. My workplace was amazing. Anytime I needed Rick, my boss had been through a ton of stuff like this, if not exactly it. And so they would let me have that time to come and do that. And one time when I stopped playing for her, she said, "Neil, I'm scared." And I said, "What are you scared for?" And she said, I'm scared for you." And I said, "You did an amazing job. You don't have to be scared anymore." And that's when she passed a few days after that. And not a few days, like a day and a half. It killed me because I had something going where I couldn't make it back the next day or something, and then that was it. But as emotional as that is, so happy that she got to know that she
Yeah.
didn't have to be scared. And I take a little that maybe she was ready to move on because she wasn't. I think a lot of it was self-inflicted with all the stuff she was in. But, I know she was in pain one way or the other, and she couldn't get past it. I mean, she got that way because of folks that for her, she got that way generationally, and she more than enough made sure I wasn't gonna get there at least the same way, and she really did. "I don't think you're gonna get there thanks to your mama, and I'm definitely not getting there thanks to mine." I
Yeah.
might go a little too heavy. I don't drink at all. I don't, it's not like I'm preaching this. It's all for me. I do have a fear of it. I had stepped into it briefly in high school enough to where it scared me back out of it with the way things were going. It's when she was in rehab for a stint when I was in my senior year. And so I noticed some things right quick about what I was doing with it and how extreme I was about things. And I with the help of some comics and things, and stepped right back out of it. So
Yeah,
like, no, no, I'm not good with this. This isn't for me. So
absolutely. I mean, I'm so glad that y'all got to have that moment and you got to tell her that she didn't have to be scared, that you were gonna be okay. I think that's the greatest gift. I mean, I don't have kids, but I just imagine that that's a greatest gift that you can give a parent is to let them know that you're gonna be okay, and yeah, you are okay. I mean, none of us are perfect. I mean, you talked about having a prior relationship. I had a prior marriage, and, there's things that I still characteristics of mine that were definitely the worst during that time period of my life that I still battle every day, like control. And I worry every day I'm going to have some major mental psychic breakdown because of, I mean, I feel like it's lurking on the outskirts all the time. Especially knowing what I know about my family history on both sides of my family, actually. I have lots of problems demons that I fight literally every single day. And so none of us are perfect, but we're doing the absolute best we can. I think by framing my mom's the way she passed away as passive suicide, even though I miss her all the time, and we got to spend some really valuable last few days of her life too, playing games together. We used to like to play Yahtzee, and we played
awesome.
Yahtzee, and so we spent some time together doing that. It was a choice, she was in a lot of pain her whole life, and she was ready. She was done, and she doesn't have to be in pain anymore. And I find some comfort in looking at it that way. So,
I think, can I step back a minute? We've missed something very critical here.
yeah, please.
The way Shu and Peg bonded was incredible and reminded me of my mom, and I would think it reminded you of yours. She would do, I'll just call them cheeky little things like extort cigarettes before she would bathe herself.
Yep.
That is that is Sandra Rickman 101. That is out of her playbook entirely. And that look, it's like it is a cheerful, it's almost, it's like a playful, but I'm dead serious look that she would give. Like, I'm really not going unless you do this. But there's a smile with it. And then Shu absolutely knew, because I think she was like, this is, I'm seeing some of myself here. The whole cigarette thing, she was worried about the smell, and she's like, "No, I love it." And then the talks they would have at bedtime about their abuses, as to where the back on Peg, which we later found out was done by the Nashihi, where it was like she was, being told by, like, the weird gaslighting people in town that that was done at a at asylum maybe or whatever. And then she showed where there were some abuses on her arm for, I guess she got burned by cigarettes or something, it looked like, when she would make mistakes or step out of religious line maybe.
Yep.
And so they had some trauma bonding they did, but also just some characteristic bonding that once that moment hit of "You're my granddaughter," it's like, "Of course you are."
Yes.
That that whole, when they were eating, and oh gosh, she put that salt in her food while she had her back turned. And that's a mom move. That's a mom move to get me to do something while my back's turned, and either playfully or not. And I would totally fall for it, and she knows because I'm such a geek. But she said something about some pageant or something. She said, "Oh, if I was in some pageant, the boy with the girls be in trouble." And it's just lines like that that actress was delivering. So it was like, that's mom.
Yep.
That is entirely, it was too real at that point. Like, they did too good a job. I'm like, they nailed the look that someone gives when they're like that. There's such warmth coming from her, and that fire and that cheek, she called it. I know where you get that cheek from now.
Yep.
Um, I have some of that from mom. I have a little bit from dad that I have to keep an eye on. It's kinda like the Johnny Cash song, "I keep a close watch on this heart of mine." And that's, you gotta walk that line, not to get too gonna sit here and sing a song to you, but nobody wants
Yes.
that. Mom did it because she wanted the company or something.
I had that same moment whenever, I was like, "Oh my god, of course they are." They have that same Spitfire energy, and God, the older I get, the more I look like my mother. I feel like the more I act like my mother, and Actually, I'm wearing her jewelry today because she was this big like, I wore that today just to kinda, honor her. She wore this big jewelry and, like, she had big hair, she loved putting on makeup, and, like, I just emanate that
I
so
was gonna say, that key is amazing, and I love that. That kind of fits the show because of all the keys in that house, and the one to
exactly.
that door in particular.
It
Yeah,
I always go rummage through my mom's jewelry box, which I have, just, like, before something when I feel I don't know, I've probably done it 3 or 4 times, but today was one of those mornings, and I went rummaging, and I was like, "Oh, look at that." Like, I feel like that was perfect. So, that really jumped out at me
that's
this morning.
awesome.
So I was like, "Oh, really felt like she was with me."
My I will say that one of the things my mom did on our like, on my first marriage, our honeymoon, she was dropping us off. They all went with us and dropped us off this place. When we were checking in, I turned around and the guy at the bellhop dude at the hotel said, "Is that your mom?" And she goes, he goes, "Is she with you?" And I was like, "Who?" My mom was waiting around in the fountain outside of the front. She was in the fountain. I was like, "Mom, get out of there." She goes, "What? It's hot." And I was like, "I know."
It's like some funny something that she would do. She would just do whatever. She just did whatever she felt like.
Nope. The story she would tell in front of my there was no filter, man.
No filter. God, that's what she was known for. She had no filter, she just did whatever she wanted to.
She would swear she slept with Clint Eastwood in front of my friends. It was all this stuff, like, it's like,
God.
"What? Are you telling me?" She's like, "Yeah, I went out to California and I slept with Clint Eastwood." And I'm like I was like, "You sure it wasn't like as a stunt double or something?" And if it was him, why not him? That
My
would have been the time.
my mom slept with the drummer of who was it? Van Halen, I think, like, she's got stories like this. My mom wasn't straight either. The attraction of that feminine energy after everything she had been through, so, God, just it's just wild.
That's amazing.
They would've been besties, it sounds like.
They would've.
Yeah, yeah.
Man.
I think we were meant to be
Um,
friends. We were
absolutely. And I'm so happy to know you. Do we talk about the way this movie ended?
if you got
It's a
time, I
heartbreaker.
think we can just bring it on home. Go for it.
There was almost she went down to look for Mila. Mila had been yelling, and then she was like, "Oh no, I have to come out of this room. I can't let him have my soon to be wife." And she goes out, and I can't figure help me out here. She sees the ring. Did they trick her into thinking Mila's already got? Or did Mila get got by them?
I think
Get
she
got? Did
knew
she get got?
that's a southern that there you go. That's something I would say, get got. I think she knew that Mila had get gotted because she saw the car out front. Yeah,
Yeah,
I
so
think
she had to trade herself
yes.
to get her back.
Yes, yep. She knew that Mila was in there, and she knew that there was only one way to get Mila out, so she sacrificed herself to get Mila.
She
Poor Mila.
marched herself in there, and she left her ring instead of one of the nails, where one of the nails should have been in front of the door.
Yeah.
And then it spit her out. Yeah, then Mila was like, give her back." Yeah, and of course, just like our other, our partners, we have this guilt that they are stuck with that trauma that they're not, it's that they're caught in that cycle too. We sorry, holy cow, behind me, the sun went off.
I saw that. Wow, it's like the sun. Just like the ending of Frewaka, where it's like it's kind of this dark movie, and suddenly she
Yeah,
steps bright field that's all grassy and beautiful. It's like, that's such a bizarre change of
the
scenery.
house under the house that Peg was calling it. Peg
Yes.
was calling it the house under the house, which is a creepy thing to say.
Yeah.
And she goes in through like this like forested tunnel and comes out in that big opening. And one of the most disturbing things was she kept saying they except for one point at one part. And at one part she goes, "He always gets what he wants."
Yeah.
And I'm like, why did it go from they to he? And that's disturbing as hell. I don't
Yeah.
know why it is, but suddenly there's a he. And I'm like, is there like, I guess that's their leader?
Curious to know what that horned figure, which I guess in Christian mythology would be like the devil, but like this is not Christian. Yeah, I don't know. Like the goat, and there's the kind of callback to that goat at the beginning of the movie.
This is the darkest version of Narnia.
Yeah, right? we step through the wardrobe, but it's actually the red door, and it's that yeah, that was so surreal. That gave big A24 vibes of, like, Midsummer.
Whoever had the cellos or the violins, man, those they were doing some work in that movie.
Wow. Oh God, where it just, like, zooming in on her face and then, like, her that
Relentless. It
relentless.
wore you down.
I was in the theater just, like, backing up in my chair, like, as that the sounds were playing and it was just zooming in on her face.
Those slow zoom ins or push ins or zoom outs they would do, and they would sometimes spin. They did it so slow and so methodically, and they wore you down with how it all, because that even was like tiring of how slow, and it was like this whole, they were really trying to give you the feeling of exhaustion that she was having with everything that was hitting her all at once and no time to handle it all. There was, time's all you got, and if you don't have time, you have nothing. And they were definitely putting her in a situation where she had no time.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
Oh, love the parallel that you drew to the partners too, because I was just thinking, poor Mila, she didn't ask for this. Like, she's not involved in this, like, family lineage stuff that's happening, but by, association, she got wrapped up in it. Can't tell how many times I've apologized to Ryan. I'm like, I'm sorry, Ryan, because he comes from this really nice. I mean, all families have their stuff, right? Like, no one's
right.
immune, but, like, he seems just like a very different family. I'm like, I'm sorry, but he's just been so patient with
We
me and my own
Julie and
healing.
I apologize to each other. I
Yeah,
hope that y'all meet one day. Maybe we'll meet sometime in a group, maybe through a watch party if it's something where it's video or we're all talking somehow. But
yeah.
was there anything else that you thought we should touch on, or
Neil, I think we covered it, covered more. I mean, I feel like I had ideas of what I
probably
wanted to touch on, and you brought such wonderful perspective and things that I could have never even dreamed to have talked about out loud. So I think we can just move on to close so you can get and check on your family out there with their little feetsies. I'm gonna ask the question of what demons did you feel like you exercised through Frewaka or through talking about it today?
I think I can finally say that I I'm in a good spot. I feel like when I've exercised is some of this trauma. It's you're never free of it, but I think it's given me new perspective in exercising some of my pessimism of how far I've come along, and I think I've come further along than I would have thought. So I've exercised pessimism in my journey on generational trauma that I'm always worried is catching up with me.
Neil, I feel like those of us that are our own worst critic can see ourselves. It's harder for us to see ourselves through the same lens that people that are closest to us or people that care about us see. And so it's my hope that I wish that you could see yourself through the way I know people around you see yourself because you're amazing. You're often called the poet of the Friends of Horror Weekly. You're such a sensitive, kind, compassionate soul. One of the most, especially in the male, I'll just go ahead and say it, that I've probably ever known. And so I just know I'm just so honored to know you. And I love to hear that some of that pessimism and that you're starting to be able to see how far that you've come. I'm happy because I wish you could see yourself the way we all see you. I know that's hard for you to take in because every time someone gives you a compliment, it's like, "Oh, no." I know that's hard for you to take in, that's
Well,
okay.
it's such a great group. It really is. I know everybody that hears it might think, "Oh gosh, here they go again," but I've never been in a group I felt this amount of acceptance, and it's natural. It doesn't feel put on. It doesn't feel like we're all just patting each other on the back for the group's sake. It's that we've gotten to know each other. We truly know each other as people. Like, well, to an extent, you know each other online, know each other, but people share. They're comfortable enough to share parts of themselves that I don't see happening in other groups, and that doesn't come across if it's not real, if it's not genuine, I tend to find, and so that comfort being genuine is like I'm just blown away by it, and I usually there's sometimes where I can only give little snippets, like, if I'm in the field or I'm running around, but I like to, if I can, if I've had, like, an emotional scar that can play out to someone else's benefit maybe, I love being able to throw it in there, and that's how that all comes to be. It comes through unfortunate it's come through some of the stuff that I've put folks through, not knowingly or thoughtlessly, or some of the stuff that I've been put through thusly, and then having that life experience, that's built it all. Because I've been a sinner, I've been a saint, I've been a poet, been all of it. Um, it's
Well, that's where I find that's where I find my own meaning in life is whatever I can do to share those experiences with others. If that'll help somebody else, then that's what I've made some kind of meaning out of my own life. That's and it's because the sun will come out tomorrow.
it's with the blonde, it's like I feel like the baby from Teletubbies right now. Like
Yeah, it was awesome. It's so succinct.
I'm the middle-aged man in the sun instead of the
That looks cool. I guess for me, I don't know. I'm gonna try to I always struggle a little bit to put words into it because I don't think about this ahead of time. I just kinda see what comes up. Have, I don't know, I've had this, little wall of, I'm gonna try not to cry because, this, wall of tears that's, wanted to come up. I asked you to come here to talk about this topic with me for a reason. First of all, because I knew that you could relate to a lot of it, and clearly you can relate to a lot more of it than I even knew. So I am just exercising this demon of yeah, of resentment. There's parts of me that I think still held some resentment for my mom and my dad. I talked mostly about my mom, but a lot of this has to do with my stepdad and my biological father and my community. Talked a lot about my community today. And I think that some of it even felt a little bit illogical. I think there was a part of me that was like, all this radical forgiveness and compassion is just not even logical. I think I'd even tried to talk myself out of some of it, but I think to be able to connect to someone that I knew that was so compassionate and that had been through the same thing just felt um validating. So, oh my god, I'm sorry. Thank you. Yeah.
Don't be. No, no, no.
Yeah, it just felt validating that all these things that can be true at the same time, that these things are hard and people's experiences all accumulate in these really terrible things, and also there's endless love and compassion on the other side of it as well. Thank you for oh my god, I was like, "Don't do it, don't do it." Thank you for helping me let go of some resentments kinda towards myself and other people that was still kinda lingering around.
I think and don't be hard on yourself for that, but I'm glad that, you could let go of some of that. That's
Yeah.
that's something we all have to on our own time. I've had to
Mhm.
do it with times with some of the choices that I wondered about, and there's days where I still have to do it. So, it comes and goes, but if you get rid of a little bit, and you just kind of learn that we're all people trying to make it, and I know that that's our mamas, they were people trying to make it and deal with their own demons as they did so, and so, yeah.
Exactly. They did the best they could. Okay. Sorry, Neil. I said I wasn't
Thank you
gonna
for being awesome. No, everybody looks up to you in the group as well, like, they look to you because they know as far as people, you know people like nobody else. That's a part of being a therapist, it's part of what you do,
Well, I think that
so
my strength as a therapist is that I don't know anything. I think you said that you quoted that earlier. I trust people to know themselves.
they do, but I think you know how to help them with the parts they struggle to know about themselves. Those
Yeah.
parts, like that frustration of when they're trying to make sense of themselves in areas that they can't fast enough, or they're not sure to how to do it more quickly because they've done it before, they just don't even know how they did it.
Yeah.
And from I know working in therapy for it's a job I could never do. I've said that about a lot. I could never be a veterinarian. We need them. We need you. There's a lot. I'm glad again I work with machines. Like, it's awful sometimes because they can't. The
Mhm.
machines don't talk to you in the same way. But then I think people when they talk to you, sometimes you don't want them to talk to you the way they talk. So, like sometimes there's that, and then you don't really get a say so in some of what that's going on. And I couldn't deal with that like y'all do. It's one of those jobs like teaching, there's a patience to it as to where I know you might not have, you're saying you might not quite have it for a kiddo. I think there's something with folks that have been through trauma that when they're dealing with someone else that is also dealing with uh, either mental health issue, trauma, whatnot, there's a calling that really you go into a different mode, I feel like, and you're able to do that. And only I don't think everybody can do that. That's not easily done or taught if it's not something you're naturally experienced with, it's a calling.
Yeah.
the group knows, like, you've given so much great advice to folks that have been in need in there, including myself, and I don't take that for granted. I never want like, I can't because that's what I tell Kim, "I don't wanna burn you out." Don't wanna, like well, you always having to always be on. I'm hoping the group can also be a place where you don't have to always be on. So,
Yeah,
I'm
exactly, exactly.
yeah.
Well, I appreciate those kind words, Neil, and I will let you go take care of your family and take care of yourself. I know this was no easy conversation to have, so go find yourself some joy today, and
I'll reflect there.
this was a happy tears, by the way.
Yeah.
This was all happy for me, so,
Well
I mean, it was hard topics, but
well,
happy.
thank you so much. It's been an honor, and yeah, my buddies, my family out there, they're part of my support system. I say it, we have a support system. They a lot of them just don't have thumbs. So so
Same, same. I feel the same way with my fur babies. They're very important attachment figures because they are love unconditionally.
definitely. All right.
Well,
All
I
right, horror
will
fam. I'll see you.